David Ezra Stein, you are a legend in the Kent household because we have gone through 3 copies of Pouch, and I'm sure parents are forever coming up to you and telling you how much they and their children love your books. But Pouch has been very well loved. There are pieces of old copies that have been loved to bits on our shelf, as well as the new copy that was bought to replace the 2 previous ones. Couldn't be more excited to talk with you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. It's great to be with you and the audience. And yeah, that's like music to my ears. I love hearing about books that got loved into pieces. So I'm glad you've gotten so much use out of Pouch. And that's one of my many books for young kids. So I have like 20 books at this point, picture books that I've written and illustrated, as well as one book called The Worm Family Has Its Picture Taken, which is about a worm, just like you. And that is the first book that I illustrated for someone else, because I just wanted to see what that would be like. And that story made me laugh a lot. And now I have my first graphic novel out, Beaky Barnes' Egg on the Loose, for 6 to 9 year olds and up, I would say. So it feels great to have this in my hand. It's just came out about 2 weeks ago. And yeah, it reminds me of like a large chocolate bar shape. It's delicious.
I would argue it's even better than a chocolate bar, because a chocolate bar you open up, you only get to eat it the one time. But Beaky Barnes, you can read over and over as many times as you want.
Exactly. There's this one brand that we love to eat that is kind of this size and shape, but it goes in about 3 days in our household.
So, so many questions for you. I was looking over your extremely impressive biography and thinking, well, where do we even begin? I like to usually begin at the beginning and work our way forward, because we know you're going to be a Caldecott winning author. We know that you're going to have a new Apple series available, Interrupting Chicken. Check that out, esteemed audience. But once upon a time, you are a reader who loves books, and you start off drawing on Post-it notes because your mother is an editor who leaves these Post-it notes around the house. Is that right?
Yeah, and I still love that kind of pale yellow paper. It's great. And the fact that the Post-it notes are all stacked on top of each other, so it has a great bounce to it. So when I created this book, Beaky Barnes, I actually drew on a stack of paper to make the line work, so that I would get that nice bouncy feeling. And now that you bring that up, I think it probably dates back to the Post-it note era. So yeah, she would leave like art supplies and things around. She never said you have to make art. She never, suggested that, but I just kind of found the art supplies and started using them. And I remember drawing in her planner one year where I just drew on like every page in one day. When I was about 3 years old. So yeah, I guess that was like my way of expression, because there were these materials around. I just gravitated towards them and started to draw. And I loved hearing stories. I loved having people read to me, because I guess I wanted attention and I wanted to know that they loved me. So, I would pull grown-ups into my bedroom and just make them read to me before I knew how to read. And I loved sitting on their lap and having the pictures open up in front of me and being absorbed into this other world through the books. And that's what I wanted to imitate in my own work. I wanted to make that beautiful world that I could see in these picture books. So should I keep on going from there? That was when I was about 3 years old. So that was pretty early on.
What were some of your most favorite picture books at that age?
The Runaway Bunny was one of my favorites. I remember the saturation of the colors in the art was just mind-blowing. And I still have this deep reaction to it when I see it now, because it's like so deep in my psyche from having been read it when I was a kid. And I loved how it switched from color to black and white within the same book. like some pages focus on painting and other pages focus on drawing. So I think I still have that love of both. I love, line work and also painting. Some people think that book is controversial because the mother is like following the little bunny around, but it really doesn't bother me. I think very small kids want the reassurance of, that their mom is always going to be there, even if they go on some adventure. If you look at it from an adult perspective, it's a little different maybe, but yeah, then there was like a lot of Dr. Seuss books like Bartholomew and the Oobleck, where he was working in pencil back then, and there was like only the Oobleck had a color. I guess that was really interesting. And the language, like one fish, two fish, the sound of the language and the repetition and the rhyme was really influential to me. The Snowy Day is just still one of my favorite picture books because of its, elegance and the way the text and pictures work together, and just the way it brings you into a little kid's perspective, and this little kid and what he thinks about and what he worries about, it just becomes as big as like an epic story like Lord of the Rings, but it's like this kid and his snowball melting becomes as big as that. So that was another one, and on and on and on. But like Frog and Toad and many books from that time. Little Bear was another favorite. Those have really stayed with me through my career, and I think they're things that I'm shooting for, the type of book that I'm trying to emulate, and the love and the friendship that's shown in those books is very dear to me. So, and then when I was about 10 years old, I remember it very clearly. My aunt and uncle came over and gave me a copy of Calvin and Hobbes, the Essential Calvin and Hobbes, and that was like a huge revelation to me. So instead of socializing with them, I just read the entire book in my bedroom as soon as they gave it to me. And it was like, he just got kids. Like Bill Watterson just understood what a young boy was thinking. And it really, excuse me, it really like, I don't know, I just felt seen by this character of Calvin and his stuffed animal. I had my own stuffed animals, and it was like, this guy gets me, and cartoons suddenly became like my deepest medium, I guess, the thing that really encompassed all these ideas from childhood, and also like adult ideas creeping in there, and more awareness of the world. And he used such big vocabulary words like halcyon that I had never heard of before. So I of course, I didn't look them up when I was a kid. I would just skip over them and pretend I knew what they meant. But eventually I learned all those vocabulary words in the Calvin and Hobbes comics, and they were on at least an SAT level of vocabulary.
Well, sometimes that's the best way to learn those words, and that may be a lost art now that people are reading on their electronic devices, and you can just click on it and it will immediately tell you what it means. But just learning the context and then seeing it again elsewhere, and you start to piece it together. That's right. It was a far more interesting way to learn vocabulary words than like memorizing it for the weekly test or whatever.
Yeah, flashcards not as fun. But like I said, I didn't look them up. I was too lazy to actually get a dictionary yet. So it was like 10 years later when I finally realized what halcyon means.